You might like Big Trouble in Little China.
But here's a bunch of people who hated it. I didn't really enjoy it, and I really tried. The premise was interesting, and it had great actors, but the plot was so bizarre and all over the place and made zero sense. Special effects were also very poor, but that was more so because of the type of movie it was. Honey, did you look at the year this was made? This was made in the 80s. This was the best they could do. At that time, this was phenomenal. If you look at those special effects then and compare them to now, of course they're gonna suck. God, don't be so harsh on an 80s movie. Plus, it made sense. If you pay attention to details, the storyline, everything made sense. Pay attention to detail.
A truck driver takes on a gang in Chinatown to help save his friend's wife. That's as far as I got. That's it. You did it. But you wrote so much more. The critic consensus says that this movie is packed with humor, but I didn't laugh once, and it could only be considered funny if you're laughing at what a joke the movie is. Your first half of this, this is an entire sentence. There's all commas. Oh, there's a period. All right. Surprise period. Aren't they all? You know it's a bad sign when you go to the fridge to get a beer and when you come back the TV is shut off and everybody has left the room because you were the only one in it. The opening scene with Kurt Russell was a bit awkward, but I would hesitate to call it funny. I imagine this film rated so high because everybody that reviewed it was drunk as I was when they watched it and probably only remembered the knee slapper at the beginning of the movie before shutting it off. And we hit our period. Your review's like a shih tzu. It's hard to figure out where the end is. Horrible mid-80s special effects. Best part of the movie was the grandpa from the Three Ninjas kickback. All that being said, I give it 1 star, but I can't say that this film fully deserves it. I don't really even want to comment on your review. I want to comment on what I think you look like with your handlebar mustache and exotic coffee and flannel shirt. Get it, hipster?
This was ridiculous. I usually love stuff like this, but this was garbage. That's really confusing. It actually sounds like a review of a lap dance.
Really stupid and cheesy. All of the characters are boring and just not funny. Really? This movie's fucking hilarious and it's supposed to be cheesy. It's the 80s. 80s movies are cheesy. That's what they're known for, the cheese factor, the over the top. If you don't like cheese, don't watch the 80s.
Or anything Kurt Russell. The cheesier the Kurt Russell movie, the taller the hair. Definition of 80s cheese right here. I can understand why some people would enjoy this film, but the acting was too atrocious and the plot too nonsensical for me to like this thing.
80s!
80s cheese.
I just like the fact that at the beginning of that review, the guy sounded like he understood, and by the end of it, he sounded like he didn't understand. Like someone was like, "Oh, yeah, I get it. We're all related to monkeys. Because of Jesus." Inconsistently funny and inconsistently thrilling. Big Trouble in Little China is a grueling 99 minutes due to poorly developed characters, a thinly written script, and the racism that overshadows the entire thing. A smear on John Carpenter's record. Man, how about a smear on you've never seen a fucking John Carpenter movie? Are you kidding me? The second you see John Carpenter's name at the beginning in the opening credits, you should be expecting Big Trouble in Little China. You ignorant ass motherfucker. That's exactly what should show up. When it doesn't, you're somewhat pleasantly surprised because he kind of diverted, but honestly, that's what you should see. And if you don't, then you should just assume that it's Jonathan Carpenter, his estranged brother. Are you okay? Been there.
I was like laughing and choking.
It's all good. You're not wearing white. You're two of your favorite.
I mean, if I'm choking and laughing at the same time, apparently he's not very big. Choking hazard. I mean, if you're choking, then there's a choking hazard, and choking hazards are small objects.
What if I have a tiny penis, but I'm physically trying to kill you?
Oh. Death by dick.
Sounds like a punk band.
Death by dick. Here we are for This concert does my dick. I can be a screamo girl.
Me hard art, bitches.
Moves 100 miles per hour with talk about Chinese myths, legends, curses, monsters, sorcery, and every other form of mumbo jumbo underneath the sun. Maybe it was meant to be random to the point of comedy or just to allow crazy visual effects. Either way, this outdated action movie failed to entertain. The only way I could have had less of a clue of what was going on is if it was actually in Chinese. First of all, that's racist. And secondly, it's not that hard to keep up with the movie if you actually pay attention to details. It makes perfect sense. And yes, it's over the top and it's outdated with the special effects. It has that 80s charm to it. You gotta love that 80s cheese. It has a strong taste.
It's so incredibly stupid that I can't even take this thing lightly. I'd rather watch some mediocre Jackie Chan movies than this supposedly great 80s cult classic. For the entire running time, I wasn't quite sure why the filmmakers decided to make this movie that has no substance or sense of fun. Kurt Russell may make a likable protagonist, but even with that, I couldn't stop asking myself what the hell this movie was about. Big Trouble in Little China is an incomprehensible kung fu B-movie. You just answered your own goddamn question. It's an incomprehensible kung fu B-movie. That was the point. John Carpenter was a part of it. You think you'd f***ing figure that out by now? It's so cheesy and stupid and full of stereotypes, I really didn't like it. Going back to incomprehensible kung fu B-movie. You could have literally just said, Big Trouble in Little China is an incomprehensible kung fu B-movie and saved yourself and me so much time.
Don't get how this film is considered a cult classic. It's because of its fan base. That's how that f***ing works. Read a book or a Kindle. I don't understand why that person won. They got more points. That's how that works. Or maybe he's just confused with cult and occult. I agree it's not an occult classic. That's true. So maybe that's what you're thinking, Scott R., who has a girl on his back that looks like she's Yoda-ing the shit out of you.
Words cannot describe how terrible this movie is. I honestly not entirely sure why I even finished the whole thing. Proof that not all 80s movies are classics that age well. Really? Words can't describe how terrible it is, and yet here you are, spewing words out onto the internet about how terrible it is? You know, you're contradicting yourself big time there. The classics that don't age well, they just don't keep up with your modern expectations. It's called enjoy a classic. It's classic for a reason. You don't go and watch claymation movies from the 60s or 70s and say, oh, hey, this doesn't meet my expectations. Same goes for 80s movies like this that are cheesy as f***. You have to understand that their special effects are not up to our standards. Look at it like a child. Enjoy it for what it is. If you think it's bad, and if you don't like the special effects, here's a good way to make it a lot more realistic. Do some shrooms and watch it. You'll be freaked out.
Guys, don't do drugs unless you want to.
Drugs are bad to do alone.
This is more for you.
I already have a touch for that.
Yeah. Just couldn't get into it. Hopefully The Rock can do it justice. Is The Rock doing a remake?
No, please, no.
This is from 2015, so maybe he tried. I understand that you were either sleeping or watching the B movie and got confused.
This is no doubt the weirdest movie I've ever seen in my whole life. It makes no sense at all. Me and I. Knee sense at all. Knee. The story isn't good. The pacing isn't good. It's just not a good movie. But I did like Kurt Russell. He's awesome as always. And some other characters is pretty good too. But still, don't check it out. Saying this is the weirdest movie you've ever seen is kind of, that means you haven't seen a lot of movies. Or you just watch whatever, you know, is super popular. That's just my guess, is you just watch whatever's popular at the time. And you've never actually seen anything beyond what sells a shit ton of tickets at the box office. That's my assumption. It is really weird though to say, I like Kurt Russell and he's awesome as always, and then saying that this movie was bad and weird, because most of Kurt Russell's movies are bad and weird, but beloved. I think you just like Kurt Russell, but haven't appreciated his catalog. That's my guess. It's like when you meet a person who has a Marilyn Monroe poster, and you're like, oh, what movies do you like of her? And they're like, movies? I was just looking at tits. Old, dead tits. Was that dark?
Though its special effects looks good, Big Trouble in Little China suffers from poor writing, poor dialogue, and its confusing ending. Well, I'm surprised you actually think the special effects look good, considering the fact that it's 80s. I'll give you props for that. But honestly, the writing's not that bad. The weak dialogue, it's not weak. It's more action-packed than anything else. This is an action sci-fi, so the dialogue doesn't really need to be there that much, and the ending isn't that confusing if you pay attention to details. I really feel like you need your IQ checked.
Definitely one of the weirdest films I have seen in my entire life. Don't know if it was made seriously or as a joke. It's cheesy, poorly constructed, and didn't make any sense. I guess that's why it's called a comedy? Yeah? Da 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 da.
I like when people come to realizations as they're typing their review. And don't go back and check. But based on all the grammar errors, clearly no one checks. Doesn't anyone else recognize that Lo Pan, James Hong, is just a Chinese version of Dracula? This is nothing more than corny chop sake with a few laughs for ridiculous situations and silly special effects. Even if it is another version of Dracula, who fucking cares? It's been like 5,000 versions of Dracula. It doesn't matter at all. Also, I feel like a fictional character like Dracula doesn't have a specific race. Like, it really doesn't matter if, like, a vampire is Asian or white or Wysian, which is white and Asian. And I just made that up, which I'm allowed to do because it's Dracula. Anyone's allowed to be a vampire. All you have to do is suck blood instead of sucking, which is what you're doing with your stupid face. Yeah, burn. Savage.
The only trouble you'll see in Little China are the preposterous events that take place in this film. You do realize this is an 80s movie. It's supposed to be preposterous events. It's supposed to be outrageous. I hate to say this, but everything back then was exaggerated beyond belief. And honestly, I kind of like that. I wish that they did that more with movies nowadays, because things are kind of predictable and boring now. Apparently, you guys just want to sit there and watch something boring. If you want to watch something boring, why don't you just put on Seinfeld?
Correction. Frasier. Mildly entertaining is a half spoof in the vein of Princess Bride. I took a weird visual image right there. Drugs are okay. Absent the charm and wit. I mean, Princess Bride is the most charming and wittiest film of, like, literally ever. So, yes, that is also correct. I don't know. Princess Bride is cool. Watch it if you haven't. I'm not gonna comment on the rest of it because the rest of it doesn't matter.
Apples are to fruit as The Princess Bride is to a movie where a guy shoots electricity. What? Wow, it's amazing how far we haven't gotten with these reviews. We're at 18. There's 30 of them. All right, we might not do all 30. I like when the sorcerer is defeated, but the part I permanently hate is his bodyguard explodes in anger. Man, I don't care what you think of this movie as long as I get to say permanently hate for the rest of my life. Man, I permanently hate my ex. Box! Phone! Girls! Camera!
Box!
I shall embrace the box.
This was disappointing, to say the least. I'm guessing because I really don't enjoy kung fu movies, but I didn't find this funny or entertaining. If you're not into kung fu movies or sci-fi, why are you watching this? This is sci-fi, this is kung fu, you know ahead of time. Big Trouble in Little China, it's in the title, basically.
I don't know why this got a good rating. I don't know. People? Done. On to the next.
I think this was the inspiration for Mortal Kombat. I get it. Raiden. He wears a big hat and he shoots electricity. I totally understand all of that for sure. I do know that I didn't get to play as Kurt Russell ripping out someone's fucking spine. And thanks for making me disappointed in Mortal Kombat. a game I used to love until I realized that I could have played as Kurt Russell, ripping someone's fucking spine out of their body as a finishing move, but it didn't happen. I could have been Kim Cattrall, who was in this movie as well and ended up in Hollywood Sex in the City, ripping out someone's fucking spine. But no. Nope. Just get the big hat electricity man. Thanks for ruining video games. Man, I took this to heart. Ah! Look, we're like the same height.
I'm taller now, bitch.
I'm not on a box.
I'm still the man.
I like when someone says, I'm still the man, and then has like a girly laugh immediately following it. I'm still the man. All right, you ready?
Yes.
Cool. I'm just gonna be like, this is Nickey Huntsman. She's awesome. Thank you. Or whatever. We'd like to thank Nickey Huntsman for being in our video. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Sweet. This went very well. We had a lot of fun. We drank booze, and we made fun of stupid people saying stupid things about a movie that we all love.
Exactly.
And you forced us to watch it again, and it was really fun to watch it again, because I freaking love this movie.
I love it too.
That being said, we're going to put a link down below, and probably in the end screens as well, to Nickey Huntsman's channel, so that you can check that out. Make sure you do that.
I hardly ever post, but enjoy.
She hardly ever posts, but you can watch the things that she has posted. Yeah. I don't know. Words didn't come out of my mouth well.
I'm a woman, but I have a strap on, so I can be a man.
And you're cute. I'd let you f me.
I'll f you.
Whoa. That being said, if you want to see another video from us, you can also click one of the ones on the screen. And until we see you next time, geek out and game on.